Ramsey.
Okay, and your hometown, were you born and raised here in Detroit, Michigan?
Yeah, I was born in Detroit on Warren Avenue, between Hastings and Brevard.
Okay, and your parents' name and occupation?
Well, my dad, he worked at the post office when he died. He died in 1940. My folks, they came to Michigan around 1925, I think it was. My dad started working in the post office. My mother was just a housewife.
Okay.
But he died in 1940.
Okay.
And like I said, I didn't live in, you speaking to the Brewster Center, I didn't go spend a lot of time there at Brewster Center as a kid. I stayed further north of Brewster. But I would go down there with a fella named Taylor Campbell. Taylor was a lifeguard. He swam down there at Brewster Center, so I would go down there on occasions with him. But the history of Brewster exceeds my involvement in it, because again, when I got out of the service in 1960, that's when I started really spending a lot of time down at Brewster Center watching the basketball.
What branch of the service you were in?
I was in the Air Force.
Air Force,
yeah,
okay.
But prior to that, again, it was always the big place to do some recreational things in the city of Detroit growing up as blacks. It was there on Hastings Street. So it was a fixture in the black community, regardless of where you lived, at Hastings Street, where we all gravitated for athletic events and just social events that they would have throughout the community. But I was involved in a group called Hastings Street, Brewster Old Timers. I joined that as a member of Brewster Old Timers. It was also in the past. I was involved with a group of East Side Brewster Knights, and we were trying to save Brewster Center then before it closed up. As a matter of fact, we had an input from Sheila Cockrell, who was on the council at that time, and she was very helpful of us trying to keep Brewster Center open. So I wish she was still on the council, and even the organization that she's involved with, you might contact her and find out if she has some personal interest in what we're trying to do. But when she was a council person, I must admit, she and I think T. Evans, they were very receptive as council people to what we were trying to do at that time in saving Brewster Center. So it's been an ongoing thing for me trying to save Brewster Center and address the culture, because I understand the buildings cannot, as it stands now, cannot be preserved. But my contention is the doorway by which all of these legendary figures walk through, that can still be preserved and attached to another structure that can be built in that place. You've got that street that's just behind Brewster Center. If you close that street off and include
that Wilkins?
Wilkins, extend from the church, it might be elements of the building that has to be torn down, but the complete structure does not have to.
It's solid, isn't it? That structure is solid.
Exactly. We've been inside. The gym is still in the gym was still in fairly decent shape. The basement area was not in such a disrepair. I mean, it's obviously in bad shape, but there are elements of that building that certainly needs to be torn down. But again, that ground, that sacred ground, it's not necessarily the building, it is the ground of the people that
right. And tell me about some of the legends that that birthed out of the Brewster Wheeler Recreation Historic Center.
Well, again, people that you don't hear an awful lot about. One of the primary, probably greatest athletes that might have came out of Detroit came out of there was Sidney D. And like I said, I didn't live in that community, but his name was renowned even throughout the city of Detroit. You had Big Daddy Lipscomb, Jimmy Lipscomb, that played football, and these guys. Again, like I said, they came out of Miller High School, I believe, and were part of that community, Black Bottom Brewster Center. But they were legends in the city of Detroit. And athletically speaking, even right now, Big Daddy Lipscomb, I think, is in the Hall of Fame as a graduate. Coming out of high school, he never played college ball. He just went, I think, from the military. And Bobby Hall, they just had a funeral of Bobby Hall, a legendary basketball player. He played with the Globetrotters, and he was truly one of the better basketball players, in not just coming out of Detroit, in America at that time. Bobby Hall is very well known within the previous generation of basketball.
They were going to honor him this year too.
That's what I understand. So again, now this is why it's important that we step up to the plate and honor guys like Bobby Hall, Charlie Primus before he's gone, Ernie Wagg, Johnny Klein, just recently, Jocko, Allen Hughes, he along with Robert Smith were inducted into a Hall of Fame that they're establishing here in Detroit, Sports Hall of Fame, and we have to reach out because if we don't make our heroes, we don't have no heroes. We can't expect anybody else to tell us who our heroes and figures are. But again, Joe Lewis, who came out of Brewster Center, this guy during the 40s, he was a real hero. Other folks had Superman as their actually. We had an actual human being, a person in the person of Joe Lewis that came out of Brewster Center.
Wow! Before the Chris Webbers and Jalen Rose
right. We had guys like Sugar Ray Robinson, who is a legendary fighter.
Big Boy Brown.
Big Boy Brown.
Alvin Blue Lewis.
You see, so
Ray Barnes.
And all of
Ted Wright.
And again, even Emmanuel Stewart, and I think Thomas Hearn.
Emmanuel Stewart, that's right.
So the history is extensive,
there.
And it's just.
And I also heard that the Red Wings back in the days, used to form their little teams there too. They played out of there or formed their teams. He was telling me something. He was showing me one of those historical Brewster Willer center pictures of the Red Wings back in the days. That probably was a little bit before your time.
Yeah, right. Well,
but they have history with that building too. The Detroit Lions, the Globetrotters. Like you said, all kind of boxers. Then we have Motown to Motortown ties. And the list goes on. So, all in the heart of Black Bottom. With connected roots as Paradise Valley, right. Hastings Street. Yeah. And then people tell me about Idlewild, Michigan, how it all linked together back in that era.
There was no separation because, again, culture extends boundaries, and this is what the culture of Detroit was germinated, and it grew out of Hastings Street, which fed into Brewster Center, and vice versa. Brewster Center, the culture in Brewster Center as a recreation center, they also had other classes. It wasn't just all sports activities going on. I think they had a rifle range or something kids could learn how to shoot because this was during the war years in America.
They told me Joe Lewis had a resort up there in Utica, Michigan. He used to take some of the Brewster Douglas kids and take them up there to his resorts for the summer.
Yeah, right. Again, he did, and like it was a lot that was turning over in the community. Before the Pistons became an item in basketball, we'd be down at Brewster Center on Sundays watching basketball games that were as good as any in the NBA because at that time the Globetrotters as a basketball team, they were competing against the pros and they were winning. The Globetrotters and the history of Detroit was there are more Globetrotters that came out of Detroit than any other city, and it's primarily because these guys competed down at Brewster Center, the Bobby Hall and Wag and Klein.
Right. So Harlem Globetrotters was just the name, right? It wasn't because it seemed like it consists most of Detroit players.
It did, right? Because I think at one point they had more Detroiters playing on the Trotters than any other city. That's supposed to be part of the history of the Globetrotters. But again, it's just so much. It came out of Brewster Center that is being overlooked. And it's our responsibility. It's your responsibility as a younger person to make sure that you don't allow from your watch. If others don't understand the significance of it, at least you're trying to make it aware that this is too important for us to just overlook it. Because our history is something that we need to be conscious of. Preserving and our historical side what's sacred in our community, and if that's a sacred building along with the sacred ground that that it's not just the building, but it is the grounds that the center sits on. So
that's what I heard. Made up black bottom.
Yeah, right.
The rich soil.
Yeah, right. See, so again, it's I just certainly anything that I can do to maintain and be a part of fighting to make sure that the legacy of Brewster Center is not just discarded and thrown away. It's our responsibility.
Right. Even if they can keep it open like a museum, like they have Motown Museum, it can be a Brewster Willer historical museum.
Exactly. So there are things that can be done. You know, there's money. There's all it takes is imagination and land, and that's one thing we got here in Detroit. There's enough land.